Hey everyone, have you bought too many preps? Have you bought too much food? Have you bought too much of something? We're going to get into some mistakes that we can make sometimes stocking up for the future by buying too many things. Now, some of you are going to say right off the bat, no, you can't buy too much. There's a crisis coming. Friends, you can buy too much. And we're going to go over 7 different ways you can absolutely buy too much. And I'm not saying you shouldn't keep on buying. I'm just saying there's sometimes you can get ahead of yourself. You can become unbalanced. Other people can think you're mentally unbalanced. We're going to get into those things. First things first, you could have bought too much too fast and run out of money, right? Anyone who uses the plastic card to swipe, I may have run a little bit of that this month myself. I was a little shocked when I got the credit card bills because I'd spent a little bit and buying some more preps and such like that. Now, it wasn't a crunch, but back in the past, I have gotten into crunches where I kind of spent a little more than what I was bringing in on preps. And so we can do that where it's not so much that we don't want those preps, it's that, well, we also need to pay our rent or our mortgage, right? We need to make some other payments along the way, and we can't just spend all of our money on preps and then just default on other things, or else somebody comes and takes your car. You know what I mean? So we can get far too ahead of things by spending too much money too fast, and that can be a problem. So what do we do about that? Well, it really comes down to just whether it's a spreadsheet or whether it's you using a notepad or whatever, you just need to really track your expenses and really be honest about how much money you really do have available and living within those means. Because if you don't have the money available, it's going to come back and bite you. So you need to focus in on what you can do with the money that you have. Try to do the most cost-effective things. If you're really short on cash, don't be buying freeze-dried meals. Be buying the rice and beans and doing your best to put those away. Do what you can with the money that you have, but that means taking some foresight at the beginning of the month or earlier, budgeting it out and saying, how much money am I really going to have this month? And being honest, and make sure you have some buffer in there too, because prices are going up on everything. So be careful. Make sure you have enough money left over. But then, you can figure out how much you should be spending this month. 2, you bought the wrong kind. Has anybody done that before? Where either you're jumping into a new product or something like that, you haven't tasted that product before, whether it's a kind of bean or you started buying some canned meats. If you bought a whole bunch of potted meat and you've never eaten potted meat before and you crack open the first can of potted meat and you're like, what did I just buy? Maybe you've never had Spam before. You've never grown accustomed to like it or at least tolerate it, and yet you've been buying up Spam. And then you crack open your first can and just say like, why did I buy this stuff? I should have bought more canned chicken or canned tuna or canned whatever. I don't know. A lot of us have been there where you started buying something or you may have dropped a fair bit of money and you've got the wrong kind, or you go out and buy a generator or something like that, and then you realize I really need a propane generator. Why do I have a gas generator? Okay, how do we avoid this? It's about doing your homework on the front end, right? But if you're also buying lots of little things, like going back to the whole canned Spam thing, please, if you're buying something you've never eaten before, please try it. Buy 1 or 2 or a couple and eat it. You need to know what you're in for. 1, so that you're not buying stuff that you're just gonna throw out or you're gonna really regret having bought. Or 2, imagine you go into this stressful situation, right? And you still don't know what Spam tastes like, and you're just and it's just one more worry it's one more added bit of stress on top of everything else. When you open that first can of Spam up, what's going to happen? It's going to be okay. Because when you're in high stress situation, the last thing you're going to want to do is open up a can of something that you don't know how it's going to taste, and it's going to be weird, and you're going to want comfort food. In a high stress situation, you're gonna default to the stuff you know what it is. So cracking open a can now will at least let you know what you're in for, and at least take one ball of stress off of things, because that's how it works. Stress, it's not like if you have 50 points of stress in this area over here, and then you just add a little 2 points of stress over here. It's not like the big one kind of negates the little one. That's not how stress works. It's cumulative. So a little bit of stress on top of more stress builds up. And we know this, right? From when somebody comes home and asks an innocent question, and then dad flips out or something like that and puts their hand through the wall. You're like, that's a little disproportionate to this innocent question that just happened here, right? We see that no, it was all the stress that he's been going through at the day at work, and stress that's been going on in other parts of life. All the stress has been building up, and then that little question came on top, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. So you may have bought the wrong kind of things. Do some planning ahead. If you're going to make a big purchase, please do your homework. Really, really make sure that what you're buying is going to work for what you need to do. Make sure it actually is compatible with the things that you need it to work with. If it's generators, make sure it's going to actually run the system that you're going to try to run. Okay? Buy the little components to your system before you get the big thing like a generator or something like that. Okay. Number 3, you missed a sale. Who here has done that? You bought too much because you went out, maybe you did your homework, and you're like, okay, I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going to go buy this thing. You buy the thing, and then like the next day or next week, you're bouncing around the internet, and you're like, hey, there's a sale for that item that I just bought. And it's like someone just punches you in the gut, right? Especially if it's a big outlay of money, right? Whether it's a whole bunch of cases of food, or whether it's a bigger item like a generator, or you realize that you could have gotten a better deal out there if you had just shopped a little bit more. Sometimes there's just nothing you could have done. You didn't know the sale was going to start the next week. It is what it is, folks. You got to realize that, it was worth it to you when you bought it, so it's still worth it. Yeah, it's kind of a bummer that you could have gotten a better deal, but, if you did your homework and you really did try shopping around, then, sometimes you just have to take the hit and just go with it. But try to shop around, of course, especially the bigger amount of money that you're laying down. The more you need to shop around a little bit. Make sure that you're checking 2 or 3 sites. See if you can get any kind of referrals. Check for coupon codes, and also see if they've had sales recently. For certain holidays. A lot of these products go on sale on kind of a rotating basis. All right, number 4. How you could have bought too much. Maybe you bought more than someone that you care about thought you should. Whether this is your parents, your spouse, friends, neighbors. You went out and you spent a bunch of money on something, and then your other people in your life, like, you bought too much. You've gone a little overboard here. Now, they may be on board with you prepping, but they may say, you bought how many cans of Spam? That's a little too much. That's a little crazy. If you swipe that plastic card and you said, gee, I can get a bigger discount if I just buy 400 cans at once. Or, we've all been there where you're like, you see the discounts on the quantity, and it's sometimes possible to just pull the trigger on something that's a little too big, Maybe you just don't really have the money, and you're just kind of like, well, we'll figure it out. Or maybe it'll just sit on a credit card. You can buy too much there, especially when you're chasing that kind of per can kind of discount or something like that can happen, or when it's a bigger item. Maybe you really aren't ready to pull the trigger on a big generator or something like that right now, and or maybe a big upgrade in the house. So maybe you went out and bought a little too much. So please do not just think about, are you getting the best bargain, but when it's a big purchase, what I do is I tend to do some late night shopping. And I sometimes don't make the best choices at late night. So what I do oftentimes when it's a bigger purchase, I shop around, and at night I put it in my basket, and then what I do is I go to sleep. And then the next day it's still sitting in the basket, and I can then decide to purchase it or not after having slept on it. I don't have a spouse to veto some of my ideas and such like that. So sometimes I do some things that I ought not to do, and sometimes things that I regret. But try to give yourself some space and get some counsel from people you really care about. Now, if it's the neighbors and you don't give a flying flip what they have to say because they don't understand what you're doing, well, then just ignore them and just proceed, right? But if you have people that you love in your life that you really care about what they say, you should maybe check with them, check your budget, and make sure that's good. All right, number 5, perhaps you started a project that you can't finish. Who else has been there where you're buying components, you're buying things for a project, and you just you don't have the time to finish it up. So I have pipe and stuff like that to pound a well in my backyard, but I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing to have. It's just it would be really great to get that well in the ground because I really want to know whether I can actually get water here or not. So there's that. Maybe like me, you've been buying up preps and stuff like that, but they've been coming into the house faster than they've been processed and stored up. That's where I am right now. I got some piles of stuff that need to be processed, and I need to get the cans marked and labeled and put on the shelves. I need to get the rice and the beans repackaged and put into bins and all that kind of stuff like that. Whew. So maybe you can buy a little too much because it's, my rice and beans aren't packaged properly and they're kind of just sitting around. That's not good. They could actually go bad that way. So if they're exposed to too much moisture, you can buy too much stuff. If you're buying it faster than you're processing it, faster than you can organize it, then that can be a problem. Number 6, perhaps you've bought so much or big items where the upkeep is too much work or too much time or too much space. So I shared with you the other week where I was talking about I seriously looked at getting rabbits and raising meat rabbits. And I finally just made the decision that the upkeep on time wasn't worth it to me. And I'm not saying that's not worth it to people out there. I'm just saying it wasn't with my situation, my living conditions, and my goals in life. It's just not worth it to me. So I went out and bought a bunch more flats of canned chicken before the price went up. Is it because of me that the price of canned chicken went up? It's possible. It's possible, folks. But honestly, you need to really count the cost before you take some big plunges, because sometimes it's not just the price you pay up front, it's the price you're going to have to keep paying every day. And some things are worth it. Like when I got my chickens, it's just like I kind of decided to go chickens instead of dog, because chickens will at least give me eggs, right? So they're kind of my pets. I know some people out there are like, they're not pets, they're livestock. Well, maybe your dog isn't a pet either, or maybe your dog is livestock too. They can be whatever you want them to be. And my chickens do for me. They give me some happiness in life, and that's fine. And could I kill them? I don't know. If I was desperate enough. I just bought some more flats of canned chicken so I don't have to kill my chickens, okay? There's more than one way to skin a cat, and one of those ways is not skinning a cat, because that's crazy. Anyway, so consider the continuing costs of some of the things that you may purchase. If you buy a tractor, realize it's going to require maintenance. It's going to require a shed to put it in. It's going to require fuel. It may be absolutely worth it to you. But then again, if you really don't have any use for it, then maybe it's just going to be an anchor around your neck that's going to seriously drag you down. Count the cost of ongoing costs, right? And number 7, perhaps you get a little unbalanced out there. Go back to the example of maybe buying 400 cans of Spam, but you don't have any rice, you know? You need to be balanced. If all you stockpile is protein, and then you're like, well, later I'll get carbs and stuff like that, and vegetables, well, that might not be healthy. Maybe you should not buy quite so much protein, and maybe you should buy kind of a more balanced diet here. So we've all been there too, where you find like a really good deal on something, and you're like, well, I'm just going to load up on this. Well, it could kind of unbalance your preps a little bit, and it may turn your stockpile into a little bit of craziness because it just kind of doesn't make sense, right? Some people have all the boomsticks and all the freedom seeds to go into those freedom dispensers, and then they don't really have food stores. Or maybe they have tons of food stores, but they don't have water stockpiled, and they don't have ways of refilling that water stockpile. That's kind of unbalanced, you know? You need your preps to be kind of balanced. If you have 2 years worth of food, but then you don't have any way of resupplying your 2 weeks of water, that's something you really need to address. So and one of the best ways to address it is don't buy the 2 years of food, buy 1 year of food, and then invest in these other areas where you're weaker. So that just comes down to planning and just really just kind of having a broad plan of what you're trying to accomplish and make sure that you are covering your bases. Now, if you're like, food prices are going through the roof right now, I really need to load up on that right now, and then I can get to the cheaper thing like water storage, because that's going to just take more time and effort and energy. Maybe you have the tools or the components to do your water collection, but that's going to take some time and effort later, which will cost the same to you then that it does in now. So, but food's going to keep going up in price. So that might make sense if you're doing that for strategic reasons. But if you're doing it just because you don't really have a plan and you just saw this great deal, then that could be an oops, I bought too much kind of thing. All right, those are the 7 oops, I bought too muches that I have experienced to varying degrees. Are there any other mistakes that you've seen out there of buying too much for preppers or for people who are preparedness minded? Pop those in the comments below. Have you done any of these? You bought them too fast and you ran out of money. You bought the wrong kind. You missed a sale. You bought more than someone that you care about thought you should. Started a project that you can't finish, or that you didn't consider the upkeep. You bought too much and the upkeep is going to kill you. Or finally, that you just got really unbalanced in your preps. If any of those apply to you, let us know in the comments down below. If you like this video, you might want to check out this video right here. Otherwise, I will see you later. Steve Poplar, out.